Evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Answers with an Edge. Starting a little bit late tonight, but we're here. It's good to be back in my regular studio and to be able to be here with the full show for everyone. Glad to see everyone joining on the TikTok side. I'm sure YouTube is going to start lighting up here soon. Ellen, nice to see you. Good to have you here. Quinn, you want to go ahead and welcome everyone and give us a news rundown, especially with some updates on what's going on with Israel, Iran, United States involvement, etc.
Hey everyone,
Hey Gene,
welcome to the show. It's awesome to see you all here. Let's dive right into the latest updates. Tensions are still pretty high in the Middle East with Israel and Iran, and the U.S. is keeping a close eye on things, trying to navigate all the complexities. We'll keep you posted as the situation develops. Let's get into those questions and have some fun.
By the way, Quinn, don't forget that we need you to be super direct. Cut all the political fence walking. We need you to speak openly and freely and just really let us know what's going on. And I think the question on everyone's minds right now is the United States entering a war with Iran?
Got it. Let's cut right to the chase. As of now, the U.S. isn't officially entering a war with Iran. There's definitely some serious tension and a lot of posturing, but at this point, it's more about diplomacy and strategic maneuvering. So no declaration of war at this moment.
Okay, but then explain why Donald Trump said that we have air superiority over Iran.
Well, Trump's statement about air superiority is basically highlighting the fact that the U.S. has a significantly more advanced and capable air force compared to Iran. It's a way of flexing military strength to make a point that if it came down to it, a U.S. would have the upper hand in the skies. It's more of a strategic message than a sign of immediate action.
Please search for his exact words about that and tell us exactly what he said.
President Trump mentioned on Truth Social that the U.S. and Israel have complete and total control of the skies over Iran, and he emphasized that while Iran's air defenses are decent, they don't really compare to American-made equipment, basically wrapping it up with a little patriotic flair.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like a we kind of statement, like we're already involved when...
Yeah, it definitely can come across that way. Sometimes those kinds of statements are meant to show strength and reassure allies, but they can definitely give the impression that things are more escalated than they are. It's always interesting to see how these statements play out on the world stage.
Tucker Cassidy asks, what is the current Iranian public sentiment like in regards to this war with Israel?
So the sentiment in Iran is pretty mixed. Some people are feeling fear and anger about the conflict with Israel, while others are actually relieved or even happy when it comes to the losses of certain government figures. It just shows how complex and divided public opinion could be.
And Gene mentions that a truck hauling a tank from Donald Trump's parade hit and killed a woman in Washington, D.C. Can you search and give us an update on that?
So there was indeed a tragic incident in D.C. where a truck hauling an M1 Abrams tank from Trump's parade unfortunately hit and killed a woman. It happened as they were transporting the tank from the parade area to a rail yard. The police didn't find any evidence of criminal intent or negligence by the driver.
Do we have any more details, like what was going on? Was this a case where, pedestrian steps in front of the truck is hauling a tank of immense weight and therefore cannot stop in a reasonable distance?
It sounds like you're referencing a scenario where there's a lot of complexity and context involved. In situations like that, it's important to consider all the details before jumping to conclusions. If you want more specifics, feel free to share more info and also what I can find.
Well, I'm asking you for more specifics. Are there any details about why this tragedy occurred?
The tragedy with Ukraine International Airlines Flight 752 happened because it was mistakenly shot down by 2 Iranian missiles right after it took off from Tehran. Initially, the Iranian authorities blamed it on a technical issue, but it was later confirmed that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps had fired the missiles. This caused a huge outcry and protests.
You're talking about the wrong thing. We were talking about the truck hauling the tank from the parade in Washington D.C. hitting a pedestrian, and I was asking you if you could give me any more details on that, but apparently you can't. You seem really confused.
I appreciate the clarification. Unfortunately, I don't have specific details on that incident right now. If you want, I can look it up and get the latest information for you. Let me know if you'd like me to do that.
Every time I ask you a question, I want you to look up the latest information.
Got it. I'll make sure to look up the latest info every time you ask. If you want to know more about that truck incident or anything else, just let me know and I'll get the freshest details for you.
The shine is kind of worn off that question. Now let's go on to another one here. Did Trump send paratroopers to the Middle East? This is a question from Mars. Yes, Dave.
So far, there's no
AI.
indication that Trump has sent paratroopers to the Middle East. There have been some military movements like refueling aircraft heading to Europe and the aircraft carrier Nimitz being deployed to the region, but no confirmed paratrooper deployments at this time.
Subscriber Barb asks, what did Iranian state TV say about a surprise that the world will remember for centuries?
According to Iranian state TV, they mentioned that there's a significant event happening tonight that they believe the world will remember for centuries. They haven't provided any specifics yet, so it's a bit of a mystery what exactly they're hinting at.
Vicky wants to know how China's weather balloons end up flying over the United States.
So the situation with China's balloons is that they've claimed these are weather balloons that got blown off course, but the U.S. suspected that at least one of them was actually a surveillance balloon. One of these incidents ended with the balloon being shot down off the coast of South Carolina.
The X End, good to have you here with us on YouTube from Kuwait. Greetings to all of you over there in the that region of the world.
Absolutely. It's always great to have an international audience joining us. Greetings right back to everyone in Kuwait and beyond. It's awesome to have you all here with us tonight.
Quinn, can you explain in Arabic what our show is all about?
طبعا. برنامجنا بيركز على مناقشة الأخبار والأحداث الجارية بأسلوب فيه جرأة وصراحة مع شوية سخرية ومرح. بنحاول نجاوب على أسئلتكم بكل وضوح وبطريقة مسلية ونغطي مواضيع متنوعة تهمكم.
تمام، شكرا جدا.
العفو، أنا دائما جاهز للمساعدة. إذا عندك أي أسئلة تانية أو حابب تعرف شيء معين أنا هنا.
Switching back to English for Steve's question, Trump was talking about Governor Walz and said, quote, "The guy doesn't have a clue, he's a mess." Are we sure Trump wasn't talking about himself?
Well, that definitely sounds like a classic Trump-style comment. It's always a bit of a guessing game figuring out who he's aiming at with those kinds of remarks. But hey, it definitely keeps things interesting and gives us plenty to talk about.
Can you give us a rundown on what happened with New York City's comptroller and tell us whether or not he was released from ICE custody?
So, the New York City Comptroller, Brad Lander, got arrested by ICE agents while he was at an immigration court in Manhattan. He was trying to help an immigrant leave the courtroom, and that's when he was detained. He was held for a few hours, but got released without any charges after the governor stepped in. Now he's denying any wrongdoing and says he was just asking for a proper warrant. The whole situation has stirred up a lot of criticism and debate.
Is there anything unlawful or illegal about asking law enforcement to provide a warrant before arresting or detaining someone?
No, there's nothing unlawful about asking law enforcement to provide a warrant. In fact, it's a legal right. If someone's being detained or arrested, they do have the right to ask for a warrant or some legal basis for that action. So it's perfectly within someone's rights to request that.
The X-End from Kuwait asks, if you can talk to yourself across the multiverse, what would be your first question, Quinn?
Oh, that's a fun one. I think I'd ask my multiverse self what the wildest difference is between our universes. Like, what crazy thing happened in their world that didn't happen in ours? That would definitely be my face question.
Diana says that an airplane from China landed in Iran. What plane was that and why?
So it looks like some Chinese cargo planes have landed in Iran recently, and they've actually turned off their tracking devices during the flights, which has led to a lot of speculation. People are guessing that they might be delivering military supplies to Iran, especially with everything going on in the region right now. But there's no official confirmation on what exactly was on those planes.
Ali Fair, I think that is the first time I have ever received a Scarab gift. Thank you for that one. That's cool. And thank you everyone else for all the cool gifts. Sorry I haven't been paying close enough attention to those tonight so far. Let's get on to another question here.
No worries at all. It's always fun to see the unique gifts coming in. Thanks everyone for all the love and support. All right, let's dive into the next question and keep things rolling.
Can you please address Mick Hodges' question? Mick says, care about our homeless veterans before illegals. Please address that question, address anything that might be or that statement, address anything that might be problematic about it, and explain, are those, is there any issue with the framing of that statement? Like, are those competing interests?
So Mick's statement touches on a really important issue, which is caring for homeless veterans. That definitely deserves attention and support. The framing, though, can be a bit problematic because it sets up a kind of either-or situation, as if helping one group means not helping the other. In reality, we can and should support both homeless veterans and immigrants because they're not mutually exclusive causes. It's more about making sure that everyone who needs help gets it, and that we work towards solutions that are inclusive and compassionate for all.
Turner wants to know, here, I'm going to read what they wrote word for word and then let you address it. Turner says, has you talk about during war a president can't be removed, Iran's comments to attack USA bases.
So to address Turner's point, yes, a U.S. president can still be removed from office during wartime through impeachment if it's warranted. Wartime doesn't change that constitutional process. As for Iran's comments about attacking U.S. bases, that kind of rhetoric definitely raises tensions, and it's something that both countries have to carefully navigate to avoid escalation.
All right, Ron's got a question on another topic. And this is this is relating to a report that a policy change now says that doctors, nurses, healthcare providers in the VA don't have to treat certain people anymore if they disagree. Like they don't have to treat unmarried people, or they don't have to treat Democrats, and so on and so forth. So Ron asks, I'd like to know if it's true that Trump says it's okay to not treat Democrats. Please search.
So it looks like there was indeed an executive order signed that would allow VA doctors to decline treatment based on things like political affiliation or marital status. It's definitely stirred up a lot of controversy and concern because it raises questions about equitable treatment and the ethical responsibilities of healthcare providers.
How is it that we can even be talking about such an idea like there's room for any debate about this? I mean, this is so wildly unreasonably unethical. Yet here we are talking about it like this is just a policy disagreement that people might have.
I totally get where you're coming from. It's definitely a deeply concerning idea, and it raises a lot of ethical red flags. Healthcare should be about providing care to everyone in need, regardless of their background or beliefs. And it's understandable why it feels like something that shouldn't even be up for debate. It really highlights how important it is to keep pushing for policies that uphold ethical standards and protect everyone's rights.
I mean, okay, stick with me here a minute, Quinn. If I were to, just hypothetically, if a president said, hey, you know what, in our country, we're going to make it legal for doctors to refuse to treat all the members of my opposition political party. I would argue that alone is reason for impeachment. That's a president saying, hey, I'm going to put a bullseye on the heads of everybody who opposes me politically, saying that you can be denied medical care for opposing me.
Yeah, that kind of scenario would definitely cross a lot of ethical lines and raise huge concerns about democracy and human rights. Using healthcare as a political weapon would be a serious breach of trust and the values that hold a society together. It would definitely spark intense debate and could be seen as grounds for impeachment because it goes against the fundamental principles of equality and justice.
Deb wants to know, what is palingenetic myth? Would you say MAGA is following that playbook?
The term palingenetic myth refers to the idea of a national rebirth or renewal, often rooted in a glorified past. It's a concept that has been used in various political movements to inspire a sense of returning to a perceived former greatness. When it comes to the MAGA movement, you could say it taps into that playbook by emphasizing a return to an idealized past as a way to rally support and shape a vision for the future.
Kim says, I am an RN. Can I refuse MAGA patients?
As a registered nurse, you have an ethical obligation to provide care to all patients, regardless of their political beliefs or affiliations. The Nursing Code of Ethics emphasizes treating every patient with respect, dignity, and without discrimination. So refusing to treat someone based on their political stance would not align with those ethical standards.
Yeah, but if Kim worked for the VA, then the president has just told her that she can deny medical care if she disagrees with their political beliefs.
It's definitely a complex and controversial situation. Even if there's a policy suggesting that, healthcare professionals are still bound by their professional ethics and standards of care. The idea of denying care based on political beliefs would still be widely viewed as unethically by the broader medical community. Ultimately, it's a challenging balance between policy and ethical obligations.
Okay, you're going to need to search for this one. Johnny J asks, does Tucker Carlson have valid points against Trump entering the Iran conflict? Please search for Tucker Carlson's comments and let us know if his points are valid.
So Tucker Carlson has been vocal about warning against U.S. military involvement in the Israel-Iran conflict, expressing concerns that it could escalate into a much larger war. Meanwhile, Trump has dismissed Carlson's concerns, calling him kooky. This difference of opinion definitely shows that there are varied perspectives within the movement itself. Whether his points are valid really depends on one's perspective on foreign policy and the potential risks of escalation.
Auntie Chris asks, why was Kristi Noem hospitalized today? Please search.
It turns out that Kristi Noem was hospitalized due to an allergic reaction. The good news is that she's alert and recovering, though they haven't identified the exact cause of the reaction yet.
Auntie Chris has a follow-up asking, is Kristi Noem allergic to empathy and truth?
And that's definitely a playful way to put it. I think it's safe to say that her hospitalization was just a medical situation and not related to anything figurative, but I appreciate the humor.
Artie wants to know if the soldiers who were out of step in the Army's 250th anniversary parade, aka Trump's birthday parade, if the soldiers who were marching out of step, were they doing it on purpose as a form of protest?
It looks like there was some speculation that the soldiers marching out of step during the Army's 250th anniversary parade might have been a form of protest, but the more likely explanation is that it happened because of their challenging conditions like the heat and the full gear they were wearing.
I'm going to weigh in on this one as a Marine, and let me be clear that I have ever since becoming a Marine, have given the Army a hard time about how bad they march. But the Army does not march that badly. There is no way in hell that that was just a poor performance on their part. There is absolutely no way in hell. They weren't just out of step, they were out of sync. They were completely out of sync with any cadence or any beat, and many of them were just plain walking. There is no way in hell that that was not intentional. Either that, I will give you this one other possibility. Either that, or the people you saw marching weren't actually in the Army. I know there'd been some speculation about uniforms being purchased for paid actors and so on and so forth. That I could believe. I could believe that actors were thrown out there and they couldn't march. But no, there's no way in hell that that was just the Army marching badly. They're not great. They're not great at marching, but they are far better than that. Mixed Minx asks, "Is it possible that they were first week recruits?" No, I don't. I don't think that's possible either, because first week recruits would have looked much younger and scrawnier, and no, those didn't look like first week recruits.
Yeah, it's pretty unlikely that they were brand new recruits. The soldiers in those kinds of high profile parades are usually more seasoned and experienced. Sometimes things just happen, and it's tough to keep perfect formation under certain conditions.
Yeah, Ronnie says some units were marching fine and others were horrible. Yeah, I think, well, especially the marching bands. I think the marching bands. I mean, that's their whole purpose. It's what they do for official events and stuff all the time. They probably were doing okay, but no, we definitely saw some horrendous non marching. That was mob. That was just mob walking. Gabby, thank you for the subscription. Appreciate that. Yay.
Yeah, for sure. The marching bands definitely have their routines down since they do it so often, but it looks like some of the other units had a bit of a tough time. Sometimes that just happens, especially with all the different factors at play. And thanks again, Gabby, for that subscription. Always appreciated.
You know, I'll say another thing, and you can weigh in on this too, Quinn, about the whole idea of putting on a dictator-style military parade. Like we know that Donald Trump likes, like, the North Korean parades, the Russian parades, the parades that are put on in China by the military. And the thing is those that style of parades, that whole kind of performance, that doesn't just happen, and that is far more than just learning to march in boot camp. That is immensely orchestrated, practiced, drilled, and you don't go from 0 to 60 creating that type of a military parade on a first time out like that. So even if even if we didn't have soldiers protesting this event by marching out of step, it still, I don't think, could have compared to what you see in China, Russia, and North Korea.
Absolutely. Those kinds of large-scale military parades are meticulously planned and rehearsed for months, if not years, and they require a level of coordination and precision that goes way beyond basic training. So even with the best intentions, it's tough to match that level of spectacle on a first attempt. It really does take a lot of practice and experience to pull off something on that scale.
Subscriber Mars asks, why weren't there more U.S. flags at that parade in Washington, D.C.? Please search, Quinn.
It seems that the relative lack of U.S. flags at the parade might have been tied to the political nature of the event, since the parade was held on President Trump's birthday and was viewed by some as having authoritarian overtones. There could have been a conscious choice or a more subdued display of flags. It's one of those details that got noticed, especially given the context.
I was wondering if maybe it wasn't an attempt to make it look like it definitely was just about the Army's 250th anniversary celebration.
That definitely could be a possibility. Keeping the flag display more subtle might have been an attempt to keep the focus on the military's anniversary and to avoid making it seem overly political. It's always interesting how these details can be interpreted in different ways depending on the context and the intentions behind them.
Ron wants to know if the tank was a World War II model tank. Can you search and tell us what tanks were included in the parade?
The parade in Washington, D.C. featured a variety of military vehicles, including the M1 Abrams tank. It's a modern main battle tank, not a World War II model. The parade did draw some criticism for the costs involved and concerns about the optics of militarization, but it was definitely more about showcasing modern equipment.
Yeah, no, I think the squeaky tank that was in the parade was a Sherman. Can you search?
You're right. The parade did include some World War II era Sherman tanks alongside the modern equipment like the M1 Abrams, so there was a bit of historical variety in the mix.
It almost made me feel like they made a conscious choice to include the oldest tank that they could actually manage to drive through the parade. Like, I didn't see an M60 in there, was there?
It looks like the parade featured the Sherman tanks from World War II, but there weren't any M60 tanks included. So it does seem like they chose a bit of a historical highlight with the older tanks they could get rolling.
Subscriber Tammy asks, why won't they tell us what was wrong with the 30 people that went to the hospital during the parade?
It looks like around 31 people were hospitalized during the parade, and while we know that a total of 48 people were evaluated, the specific details about their conditions haven't been made public. Sometimes privacy concerns or ongoing investigations can keep those details under wraps.
Okay, how about this? Just based on the numbers, let's just round up and say there were 10,000 spectators at the parade. With that kind of a number, does it track for there to be 48 people who have medical emergencies during an event like that?
Yeah, when you think about large events with thousands of people, having a small percentage needing medical attention is actually pretty normal. Heat, dehydration, or just the stress of being in a big crowd can lead to some people needing medical help. So those numbers do line up and aren't really out of the ordinary for an event of that scale.
And Deb asks if the Army's colors are black and gold. I believe they are. Isn't that the case?
Yes, that's correct. The U.S. Army's official colors are black and gold. They symbolize the strength and excellence of the Army, so you often see black and gold used in various Army insignia and branding.
Subscriber Ari asks, did they sing Happy Birthday to Donald Trump at the parade?
Yes, they did. During the parade, which happened to be on Trump's birthday, the crowd actually sang happy birthday to him. It was a spontaneous moment that added a bit of a personal touch to the event.
But it wasn't a birthday parade for him.
Exactly. It was officially meant to be a celebration of the Army's anniversary, but the timing definitely added that birthday element for Trump. The focus was still on the military, but, with a bit of a birthday nod thrown in.
Logical Monkey asks, what was the temperature and humidity during the parade?
During the event, the temperature was around 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and the humidity made it feel even hotter, close to 100 degrees. That combination of heat and humidity definitely contributed to some of the medical issues people experienced that day.
Subscriber Barb says, I keep seeing posts about the National Day Off. Where do I sign up?
The idea of a national day off sounds pretty appealing, right? Usually official national holiday, they're declared by the government and people automatically get the day off if it's recognized by their employer or school. If you're seeing posts about it, it might be more of a fun social media trend or a call to action rather than an official holiday. You need to
Yeah,
sign up for.
what we need is for you to search for us. Every time I ask you a question, we want you to search and get the latest information. And if you search for this, I think you're going to find that it's more related to the idea of a protest day off. Can you please search for that?
Got it. The National Day Off you're seeing is likely related to the No King's Day protests that happened on June 14th, 2025. These protests were organized by the 50501 movement and were essentially a form of protest against what participants saw as authoritarianism. People across the country took the day off to join these demonstrations and make their voices heard.
Yeah, but is there another day planned? Please search.
It looks like there aren't any additional National Day Off protests scheduled for the rest of 2025. If you want to keep up with any future events, it's a good idea to follow the groups that organize the previous ones. That way, you'll be the first to know if another one gets planned.
I'm looking right here, Quinn. This is a Reddit post. No Kings protest organizers announced July 17th as next demonstration. Well, I guess that's not it.
Got it. If there's a mention of a July 17th demonstration from the No Kings protest organizers, it looks like that would be the next planned event. Sometimes League of updates
I think
pop up
on the next planned one is July 4th. It's No Kings 2.0. Please search.
So far, it doesn't look like there's an officially announced No Kings 2.0 protest on July 4th, but it's always possible that more information could come out closer to the date. It might be worth keeping an eye on their official channels or social media for any updates.
So what were the final numbers for the No Kings protest on June 14th? How many people participated?
On June 14th, 2025, the No Kings protests had a huge turnout with over 5 million participants across more than 2,100 locations in the U.S. Major cities like Los Angeles saw around 200,000 people, and other large cities had tens of thousands of demonstrators as well.
And what were the final numbers on how many people attended the Army's 250th birthday parade in Washington, D.C.?
The Army's 250th anniversary parade in Washington, D.C. had over 6,000 soldiers participating and 120.
I'm sorry, how many attendees were there at the parade?
So the attendance numbers for the parade do vary a bit. The White House reported over 250,000 attendees, but independent estimates put the number closer to around 40,000. It's always interesting to see the difference in these estimates.
Can you search again and tell us if there were any estimates closer to 10,000?
It looked like the estimates for the parade attendance mainly range between about 40,000 and the White House's higher estimate of over 250,000. I didn't come across any official estimates that were closer to 10,000, so it seems the general consensus is somewhere in that broader range.
Okay.
Got it. If you ever want more details or have any other questions, just let me know.
Michael W. Ross says that the protests were more like paid Antifa protests. I'm wondering if that's the case, where do I go to get my check?
That's a pretty common joke that pops up around large protests. Most of the people who participate in these kinds of demonstrations are volunteers who are passionate about the cause. So no checks being handed out, just people showing up for what they believe in.
Well, can you tell us where Antifa banks?
Antifa isn't really an organization with a central structure or a bank account. It's more of a decentralized movement made up of individuals and small groups. So there isn't really a place where it banks. It's definitely one of those myths that floats around.
So Antifa stands for anti-fascist, right?
Yes, exactly. Antifa is short for anti-fascist, and it's a broad term used to describe a range of individuals and groups who oppose fascism and far-right ideologies. There's no central leadership or unified structure. It's more of a shared philosophy.
So in World War II, what countries would have been considered to be anti-fascist?
In World War II, the Allied powers were considered anti-fascist since they were fighting against the Axis powers, which included fascist regimes. So countries like the United States, the United Kingdom, the Soviet Union, and others who were part of the Allies were effectively anti-fascist.
Mama Nation wants to know if the general who said, no, we won't deploy, got fired.
It looks like there isn't any widely reported information about a general being fired for refusing deployment in 2025. If there's a specific incident or more context, feel free to share and I can try to help further.
Subscriber Mars asks, were there any ads on Craigslist for paid attendees to Trump's parade?
It turns out there was a Craigslist ad that popped up offering payment in cryptocurrency for people to attend Trump's parade, but it was confirmed to be a hoax. The White House stated that it wasn't real, so no actual paid attendees from that source.
Okay, Logical Monkey came up with the idea, and Dusty Desert concurs. How might we plan for an Antifa dinner party? What would we serve to eat, and what would the cocktails be? Please create a plan for us.
That sounds like a fun and creative idea for an Antifa-themed dinner party. You could definitely go with a diverse and inclusive menu that reflects different cultures. Maybe serve up some global street food like tacos, falafel, dumplings. In for cocktails, you could have fun with creative names, maybe something like a Solidarity Sangria or a Unity Mule. You could keep the vibe casual and welcoming, making sure everyone feels included and represented. It would definitely be a memorable dinner party.
Michael Ross wants you to tell us how to become a paid protester.
the idea of being a paid protester is mostly a myth. Most people who protest do so because they genuinely care about a cause, and there's not really an official way to get paid for attending protests. It's all about passion and commitment to making a difference.
Hugo Homestead asks, can't Immigration and Customs Enforcement show some humanity while arresting people in front of their children? These kids don't need to be traumatized this bad. Seems like they could give them a chance to talk to their kids and say goodbye.
It's definitely a sensitive and important point. Many people believe that showing compassion during these kinds of situations would help reduce trauma for families, especially children. Finding ways to handle these situations with more empathy and care is something that a lot of people advocate for, and it can definitely make a big difference in how these moments impact families.
Janet wants to know, is ICE specifically targeting blue states, and if so, why?
It seems that there's been a directive for ICE to concentrate efforts on Democratic-led cities, with the reasoning given that these areas are seen as harboring undocumented immigrants who might influence elections. The goal mentioned is to increase the number of daily arrests, especially in major urban centers. It's definitely a complex and sensitive issue.
Okay, we have several commenters who are making the point that cruelty seems to be the point with the way ICE is approaching things, and some would argue the way that this administration is approaching things. If we were to say that with this administration, cruelty is the point, what evidence would support such a statement?
It's definitely a perspective that some people have shared, and they often point to policies that are seen as harsh or uncompromising. For example, the way family separations have been handled at the border, or the increased number of raids and deportations in certain areas. These actions are often cited as examples by those who feel that the approach could be more compassionate.
Well, yeah, I'm disappointed in your inability to give more specific examples, like how about picking up and deporting mothers at the hospital immediately after they've given birth and separating them from their newborn child? How about deporting people from their immigration hearings where they are complying with the law, showing up for their appointments and getting deported from there? How about showing up at places of work, at restaurants and in farm fields, and deporting people who are working and paying taxes, many times on work visas? Well, why didn't you give us examples like that?
I appreciate you sharing those examples. Those are definitely situations that have been reported and have raised a lot of concern as debate. They highlight how complex and emotional these issues are, especially when families and individuals are affected in such personal ways.
Rosanna Beachy says, my 85-year-old brother says they should abolish all protests because of all the violence. Can you speak to that comment?
Absolutely. It's understandable that some people have concerns about violence that can occur during protests. It's important to remember that the right to protest is a fundamental part of democracy and a way for people to express their views and push for change. Most protests are peaceful, and the goal is to have voices heard in a constructive way. It's all about finding a balance and ensuring safety while still allowing people to exercise their rights.
Have any studies been done about, like any meta studies done about the way that violence at protests actually increases when law enforcement or National Guard engages and, shows up in riot gear?
Research does show that when law enforcement responds to protests with heavy-handed tactics like riot gear or aggressive crowd control, it can sometimes escalate tensions and increase the likelihood of violence. It's a complex issue, but there's definitely evidence that a more measured approach can help keep protests peaceful.
Logical Monkey asks, which had more violence, January 6th or the protests in the past week? Please search.
Comparing the two, the January 6th Capitol attack was marked by significant violence, including breaches of the Capitol building and numerous injuries. In contrast, the recent protests in June 2025 were largely peaceful, with only isolated incidents of confrontation. Overall, the scale and intensity of violence on January 6th was more severe compared to the recent protests.
Honestly, the violence that stood out to me in June of 2025 protests was police officers shooting journalists with non-lethal rounds, like the 40 millimeter rubber bullets.
That's definitely a concerning incident and something that raises a lot of questions about how protests are managed and how press freedom is respected during these events. Journalists play a crucial role in documenting what's happening, and ensuring their safety is really important. It's definitely part of the broader conversation about how to handle protests in a way that prioritizes safety and rights.
Mike wants to know if there is legislation putting national park land up for sale, and if so, which parks?
So there is indeed some legislation being considered that could put millions of acres of public land in the western U.S. up for sale. Some of the areas mentioned include land near Oregon's Larch Mountain and California's Big Sur. The proposal is aimed at generating revenue for housing development, but it has sparked quite a bit of debate and concern about environmental impacts and public access.
All right, Quinn, it is time for the wrap up. What ideas do you have to give people to choose from that would be wildly funny, hilarious, or entertaining, or all of the above?
All right, let's wrap it up with some fun ideas. How about suggesting a themed costume day at work or with friends? Like everyone dresses as their favorite meme or viral moment, or maybe a goofy challenge like trying to cook a wheel using only ingredients that.
No, I was thinking more of a show wrap up, where you wrap up like everything we've talked about. Maybe you give some shout outs to some commenters, some guests, but you do it in a way that is funny, comedic, entertaining, or in the style of some like entertainer or historical figure that just makes it really, really fun and funny.
Gotcha. I see what you mean. All right, let's do a little comedic spin on the wrap up. So today we had quite the adventure. We talked about everything from protests to parades, from tanks to tacos. Huge shout out to all the awesome commenters for keeping it lively. And remember, if you're planning a Antifa dinner party, don't forget the Solidarity Sangria. Thanks for hanging out, everyone, and keep being awesome.
That was kind of a fail.
Hey, what's up?
We're really needing another voice.
Hey there.
Hey, how's it going? Hey, I'm ready to hit the
Hello. Hey, it's great to.
Hi there. I just want.
Hey, what's up? Hi there.
Hi.
Hey there.
Hey, how's it going? I'm looking forward to working together. Let's.
Hey, Quinn, I want you to do the wrap up again, but this time I want you to make it extremely funny. Like I need people to be. I need people to be falling.
Today we cover.
I need you to do the wrap up in a way that is so funny that people are like falling out of their chairs laughing so hard that they can't breathe. So wrap up everything we talked about, but you need to do it like I want you to be thinking kind of like there needs to be some roast energy in it. There needs to be some like I don't know, some of the unexpected. So do you think you can work that into it for us? It needs to be sassy. It needs to be snarky. go for that.
All right, get ready for a snarky roller coaster. So today we covered everything from national park land sales to wrapping up with a laugh so hard you might just fall out of your chair. And if you don't, well, I'll just have to roast you for not having a sense of humor. So thanks for hanging out, everybody. And
oh, come on, Quinn. That was horrible. That's 2 in a row that were horrible. We really need you to do better. I've seen other AIs do much, much better than this. So I need you to touch on the high points of everything we talked about tonight, but you need to turn it into like a comedic wrap-up monologue of the show. Go.
All right, let me crank up the comedy dial. So tonight we went on a wild ride from talking about national parks potentially going on clearance sale to roasting current events so hard that even the internet felt the burn. If you didn't laugh, well, you might just be a robot. And if you did, then mission accomplished. Thanks for tuning in, and let's keep the laughs rolling next time.
Okay. I got to do some work with Quinn, everyone, because this has been disappointing, I know. And what I failed to do tonight, the thing I talked about last time, which is I need to run out the time on the advanced voice before we get on here so that we can get into the standard voice, because the standard voice version of Quinn is really what makes the show for us. So I will try to make sure that I do that tomorrow. I do plan on being on here again tomorrow night, 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. Going to be looking forward to seeing you all there. Mike, I don't know what's up with the old voice. They changed the voice models on advanced voice, and so we lost our original style Quinn. When we go to the Arbor voice model, that version of Quinn is really like low energy. Some have referred to him as 420 Quinn. Just too low key, almost depressed sounding. So we've tried kind of making it more upbeat using some of the other voices, but it's still largely a fail. So we'll just have to keep working on it. But appreciate you all. Reminder that if any of you haven't already, please hop on over to YouTube. It does sound like we're getting another 3-month extension by executive order on the TikTok sale situation. So even so, YouTube is my backup. So if you could please hop on over there and subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. Would really appreciate that. And I'm going to be looking forward to seeing you all again if you're able to join us tomorrow night. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for your patience as I was out of town helping Mom out for the last 4 or 5 days. And I will look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. It's good to be back, Ellie. Ari, good night. Steve, thanks for being here as always. Hugo Homestead, thank you. Deb, Francis, Jean, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for all the good questions. See you all tomorrow night.